Parsha. This week we do have a Parsha, the Shabbos, Ha'azinu. We don't get to study it together that often because of the way the calendar usually falls. So grateful to have the opportunity to study it together this morning. I want to thank our generous sponsors for the Parsha series for the year, Becky and Avi Katz and family, in memory of Becky's father, David Grossman. Le'iloi Nishmas David Ben Achim Manash. Thank you so much to the Katzes. Deeply appreciate their generosity. This morning's class is also sponsored by Jory Epstein. So grateful to Jory. Thank you for that sponsorship. Thank you for listening. She sponsored in honor of our shul for offering so many meaningful classes during COVID-19. And we're grateful to your generosity and to listening. I also want to mention that this morning's shir is part of a global learnathon. There's a beautiful effort across the globe to provide 24-hour learning in anticipation of Yom Kippur, all to benefit a group of chesed organizations. And I'm proud to be part of it and grateful to those who've organized that to be able to join as well. So Parshas Ha'azinu. Ha'azinu is a song. If you actually look at the way it's even laid out, in the ArtScroll Stone Chumash, it's on page 1,100, 1,100. And if you look at the way it's laid out, you see that it's two columns. It actually appears as poetry. It's a song, Ha'azinu Hashamayim Va'adabera. V'sishma ha'aretz imrei fi. The text reads very unusual, different than what we're used to ordinarily reading in the Parsha, in the Torah. It reads like poetry. It reads like a song. It should be put to music. Very, very poetic words. The text itself really jumps off the page. It's very significant to us. Now, it's very interesting. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Lamed Aleph, entertains something that we don't do. We hear Ha'azinu once a year, one Shabbos a year, we read Ha'azinu. We actually hear it maybe more often than other Parshios, because not only do we read it the Monday and Thursday before, but depending on the way that Rosh Hashanah falls, you could read it several Mondays or Thursdays or Shabbos Minchas, depending on how the calendar is arranged. But in the time of the Gemara records, and again, Rosh Hashanah Lamed Aleph, the Gemara entertains the possibility that Ha'azinu was not only read one Shabbos every year, but was in fact read every Shabbos. Why? The Gemara there delineates the Shir Shayom, the songs that would accompany different korbanos, different sacrifices. It tells us the power of song. You know, as many people have suffered and struggled in this pandemic, the thought that we would have to entertain Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur without being able to sing is what opens up the heart. It's what opens up the soul. Song is what moves us, transports us, uplifts us, enriches us. Song has a tremendous capacity. We talked about this several weeks ago when the Torah tells us, Kisvu lachem es hashira hazos, Parshas Vayelech, the 613th, the last and final mitzvah in the Torah, is to write a Sefer Torah. Every Jew is obligated to write a Sefer Torah. Is it every Jew? And how do you fulfill that mitzvah? And how do you fulfill it today? All not for now. But if you recall, we saw the beautiful and brilliant insight of Rabbi Soloveitchik that Torah is likened to a song, because a song one immerses themselves in. You can hear a song in the year 2020, and all of a sudden you're back in your summer camp in 1982. You're back on your college in the 1970s. You're back in your childhood, even far beyond. Song transports. You're immersed in it. It moves you. It has the ability to impact you more than what you read, more than simply words or prose. And Torah is therefore likened to a song because we immerse ourselves. Torah doesn't speak just to the head. It speaks to the heart. Just like music doesn't just speak to the head. You don't analyze music in your brain, but rather you feel music in your kishkas. You ever see there's a song that comes on in the old days when people weren't so nervous and on edge? If you were in the supermarket or the store and a song with a great beat came on, you'd see people almost against their will dancing in the aisle. You'd see someone tapping their foot. You'd see someone moving to the beat. Song has the ability to move us in ways as if almost we don't have the ability to fight it. And that's what Torah should penetrate into our soul. It should move us. We are immersed in it. So Shir Shayom, the korbanos, the word korban means karov. We come close to Hashem. And one of the mechanisms or means, one of the instruments to be able to come close to Hashem is to be accompanied by song. The Levium were tasked with this great responsibility, with this very holy responsibility, that as the korban was offered, as we were drawing close, karov, the song, the shir, was being offered. So the Gemara there in Rosh Hashanah talks about what was said, what was the text of the song, what was the liturgy that was offered with each of the korbanos. Quotes Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Akiva, the first day of the week, B'yom Rishon, what did they say? B'yom Sheni, what did they say? On Shabbos Kodesh, what was the Shir Shayom for Shabbos Kodesh? Now we know the Shir Shayom is Moshe Yom HaShabbos, which is peculiar because the rest of the paragraph doesn't mention Shabbos whatsoever. Why is that the Shir Shayom of Shabbos? Not for a Parsha class on Ha'azinu, but well worth investigating. The Shir Shayom of Shabbos doesn't have anything to do with Shabbos. It says Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, and that's the only mention of Shabbos. Why was that chosen? But the Musaf had an additional song. There was the Shir Shayom of the Tamid, the regular daily offering, but there was an additional song that would accompany the additional sacrifice of the Korban Musaf. And there the Gemara quotes Rav ben Rabbi, who said in the name of Rav, what was the song? It was Haziv Lach. Haziv Lach is a reference to Ha'azinu. Ha'azinu can be divided into 6 sections. It's a poem that can be divided into 6 units or 6 sections. And the acronym for those 6 sections is Haziv Lach. So the Gemara therefore says, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed Aleph says, entertains the possibility that the Levium song for the Musaf was Ha'azinu. I share that with you to introduce our study of Ha'azinu, to tell you Ha'azinu is so significant, so beautiful, so moving, so exciting, that it wasn't only read once a year, but the Gemara entertains the possibility that it was read each and every week, each and every Shabbos. Now again, we don't paskin like that, and we don't incorporate it and read it that way, but it should nevertheless impress us just how significant and how important, how meaningful Ha'azinu is and its connection to Shabbos. So what is the connection? If you look at Rashi describes the beginning of Ha'azinu, and he tells us that Ha'azinu draws from the past and the present and the future. It's a peculiar song. Because unlike most songs whose lyrics inspire, unlike most songs whose lyrics, not only are you moved by the melody, but the words themselves can open up your heart, Ha'azinu's lyrics are harsh. They criticize, they even condemn. So who would want to sing a song whose lyrics include, this is from Ha'azinu, Hal Hashem tigbeluzos am nava v'lo chacham, Halo hu avicha kanecha hu asacha v'yichonenecha. Do you thus requite the Hashem, O dull and witless people? Is it not He the Father who created you, fashioned you, made you to endure? Vayishmein Yeshurun vayiv'at shamanta avita kashsisa vayitosha loka aso vayinabel tzur Yeshua aso. Yeshurun, the Jewish people, you grew fat and you kicked, you grew fat and gross and coarse. You forsook Hashem, you spurned, you violated the rock. The Ramban writes here that Ha'azinu is called Shira, Ha'azinu is called song, because Jews had to practice to read this text regularly as song. The Rambam, not only did the Gemara entertain it to be read each and every Shabbos, but the Rambam, in the 7th chapter of Hilchos Tefillah, the Rambam mentions a practice of saying Ha'azinu every day. We have parts of Torah we say every day. We say Shema every day. Some read the story of the Akedah every day. The Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah, Perek Zayin Halacha Yud Gimel says some of the practice of reading Ha'azinu every day. So again, I ask you, who would want to read a song which criticizes, which condemns, a song that is so harsh? Why would we want to read a song or sing a song that tells us how dull and witless we are, how fat and coarse we grew, how gross we are to God? These are the lyrics that should inspire and move us. Why would we read it every day or every Shabbos, or even want to read it, let alone each and every year? The Sifri, the Medrash Sifri, praises Ha'azinu. Rashi quotes, because it presents the past, the present, and the future, the time continuum. It puts the Jew in a context of history. The Ramban and Rabbi Bachya both write that all of Jewish history is encapsulated and incorporated. It is captured in part in Parsha Ha'azinu. When you read Ha'azinu, you are commemorating the past. It is inspiring and informing the present, and it is opening up the future. Ha'azinu begins on a positive note. It describes our special relationship with Hashem, and it ends on a positive note about achieving peace in the world, a longing for the eschatological era, the time when everything will make sense, when we'll be able to put together the pieces, we'll be able to just get along, when the Jewish people will not have to spend energy, time, and resources defending and protecting ourselves, but we can dedicate all of our time, energy, and resources exclusively to the service of Hashem, to repairing the world in His image, and to making the world a bigger and a better and a lighter place. So true in the middle, couched in between the positive note at the beginning and the vision for the peace in the future at the end, in the middle there's negative. But here's the message of Ha'azinu. This is the first point I want to share with you this morning. And it's a point relevant not only to Ha'azinu, but to Aseret Yemei Tshuva, to this time in which we find ourselves couched between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These are the days to prove our worth, to prove that we are essential staff, essential personnel, essential to the Almighty, essential to the people around us, essential to ourselves. Then maybe the message of Ha'azinu is, whose life doesn't have positive, maybe the beginning and the end, but whose life in the middle doesn't have some negative, doesn't have some challenging moments and challenging times? Hazinu tells us, don't be focused in a narrow way on that challenging time. Don't let the pandemic, don't let the quarantine or solitude, don't let the particular crisis, maybe in your life, in an individual's life, become the sum total of the way life is remembered, the way life is memorialized. It's not the sum total of our existence. Hazinu tells us, zoom out the lens, focus on the big picture, on the whole story. See things in a context and as part of a continuum of history. And when you do, you'll dig deep and you'll find what's worth singing about. You're right, that moment, it's challenging, it's harsh, it's crisis, it's difficult. Collectively, we're all going through a difficult time, and individually, people are going through very difficult times related to this pandemic or unrelated. And if you focus on it, it becomes the sum total of your thinking. But you got to zoom out the lens and look at life. Look at how we got here, where we are, and please God, where we are going to go afterwards. That is our vision and that is our mission. And that is our role. We spoke about this in Parshas Kisava, the farmer who brings the bikurim. The farmer doesn't just say, here you go, God, here's my first fig. Take it. Here's my first pomegranate. Take it. No, the farmer says, you know, my forefather in Egypt was almost vanquished, was almost just decimated. And yet we were taken out of Egypt and we wandered through the desert. And this farmer reviews Jewish history to get to this point, because to be grateful means you're not zoomed in narrowly. To be grateful, you have to see context, continuum. You have to focus out and say, you know what? What a privilege, what an honor. How grateful we are to be here. You're right, this moment's challenging. You're right, this moment's difficult. You know, you could look at Shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and you could see what was missing, or you could focus on what's there. You could say, I can't believe the people who can't qualify to be here, they're too vulnerable or fragile. It's too dangerous. You could look at the shul and say, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 foot separations. Look how many chairs are missing. Our main sanctuary normally holds over 700, and we're barely at 200, less than a third of our capacity. We don't hear the resounding singing. The walls are not reverberating. We're wearing masks. We can't even see or smile at one another. Or you could say, thank God, what a miracle it is that we're here. How many times over the last few months did we say, I can't even picture being together Rosh Hashanah. I don't know how that could possibly happen. The choice is up to us what we look at. And this is not the classic half full or half empty. It's, are we zoomed in or zoomed out? Are you narrowly defining and clouding all of your judgment? Are you filtering all of your perception through what that one moment, or the capacity to zoom out that lens and to see the bigger picture, of the miracle of being here, and to be able to therefore have the courage and the tenacity and the faith to take us to where we're going? That's the message perhaps of Ha'azinu. There's positive in the beginning and there's positive and a vision of the end. And in the middle, there's negativity. The middle is harsh. The middle is critical. And the middle has crisis. But whose life doesn't have both matzah and maror? Whose life doesn't have that combination and that mixture in it? It has both. And it's all a question of what we focus on. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling us at the end of his life. Uvacharta v'chayim. Choose life. Choose to focus on the big picture, the good. Choose life altogether. The Zohar calls the sukkah the tzela d'hamnusa, the shadow of faith. When sitting in the sukkah, we're to feel that we are in the shade of divine providence. If you're in Florida, you're lucky if you have an air-conditioned sukkah, or if you're sitting in the shade, it still has a feeling of over 100 degrees. I understand from family in New York that it was in the 40s on Rosh Hashanah. It's amazing how we had diametrically opposed experiences, those who davened outdoors in Florida and those who davened outdoors up north. But what does it mean? Tzela d'hamnusa, that's Sukkot. And I know I'm jumping ahead. We have to get through Yom Kippur first. But I know Sukkot is described by the Zohar, the shadow, the shade of faith. Rav Chaim Friedlander, the great Mashgiach of Panovich, in his Sifsei Das writes that we can achieve this by thinking of Hashem's hand in history. When you sit in that sukkah, if you narrowly focus on that moment, either I'm suffering from the heat, I'm mitzvah from the oppressive heat. Or if you're up north, and my memories of my childhood, how many jackets and how many blankets can you bundle in? Maybe I'm struggling and suffering and shivering from the cold. So where do you feel that you're in the shadow or shade of faith of Hashem? Says Rav Chaim Friedlander, on Sukkot, the mission is zoom out the lens. As you sit in that sukkah, think not only about that moment, as you sit in that sukkah, think about what it took to get here. Do you have parents or grandparents who are survivors? How many didn't make it to sit in a sukkah? How many would give anything to be a little cold or a little hot? How many would give anything to be in shul in a mask, distance from others, Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur? Don't look at the moment. Look at the context of history and see Hashem's guiding hand. Hashem guided everything in the past, and He's guiding our present, and He is planning and orchestrating, He's choreographing and curating our future. And when we sit in that sukkah under the protection of Hashem, the Teilah Musa, we reflect not only on that moment, but we reflect on our lives. And we consider where our family came from and where we are going. That's every Jewish holiday. The Shalosh Regalim, the word regel, like the word hergel, it comes to break up the hergel. Hergel means the habit, the rote. We become this momentum that we fall into. And our lives just are this runaway train. And we don't differentiate yesterday from today from tomorrow. And all we think about is the crisis or the discomfort of right now. And the regel, the regalim come and they break the hergel. They interrupt that momentum and they say, stop, and reflect and think about the miracle that is you and what your family endured and what your story and family narrative are, how you got here, where you are, and where you're going. And that's Shabbos Ha'azinu. That is the Parsha of Ha'azinu. That is Aseret Simei Tshuva. Part of the process of personal growth and introspection, part of the process of Aseret Simei Tshuva is to embrace the Ha'azinu of life, that there's positive, but there's also some negative mixed in. Begins and it ends wonderfully, but there's some challenging times in crisis. And when a person can do that, you can sing. Ha'azinu is a song that moves you. When your life is a song, when you hear the music, no matter what's going on, And the Baal Shem Tov described Emunah is like that. Baal Shem Tov said, the people who have Emunah, it's like they hear the music and they're dancing to it. And sometimes there are people that, what are you dancing about? It's dead quiet in here. What are you dancing to? You look like a fool. Say, no, you just don't hear the music. I hear the music. There's a new fad. There was at Simchas when we still went to them. Please God, it'll come again. Bar and Bas Mitzvahs and so on. They have silent DJs, I think they're called. Silent DJs. You're all giving me blank looks. You have no idea what I'm talking about. What's a silent DJ? Again, who would ever think of this? Certainly I didn't. You know what a silent DJ is? It's that the kids on the dance floor wear headphones and the DJ is playing different music through different headphones. And it's fun for the kids because they look like fools. This one's dancing to fast music, and this one's dancing to slow Jewish music, and they're dancing at different rates and different rhythms, and they're having a lot of fun because they all look hilarious to one another. And the best part is that the adults sitting on the side don't have hearing loss when it's over because the kids are listening to all that music on headphones, and you get to enjoy. So if you walk into that room and you look at that dance floor, you also burst out with laughter. The silent DJ, the kids are all dancing, and you're saying, what are they dancing about? Where's the music? It's silence, but they hear the music. Baal Shem Tov said, that's Emunah. When you see Hashem's guiding hand in our lives, when you see Hashem's guiding history, when you understand there's no random and chance, it's all from above, then you hear the music. They sing the Shira, Ha'azinu. Then you're dancing through life because you see, you're able to connect those dots. You're able to step back and see the big picture and not just focus on the little dots. It's not a blur, it comes into focus. When it comes into focus, you can't help but sing. We sing in Beshalach Parshas, we sing Shabbos Shira, and we sing in Ha'azinu the song of Shira. The Lubavitcher Rebbe Zatzal in his Likutei Sichos also talks about the significance of Ha'azinu. This is all by way of introduction, by the way. We're going to get to the Shira momentarily. I still have a Shabbos Shuvah drasha to prepare. Ko Shiras Ha'azinu, he writes, Nikba b'Parsha Achas Perek Echad. All of Ha'azinu appears in one parak. The song of Ha'azinu appears in one parak. The whole song, the Shira of Ha'azinu, is in Perek Lamed Beis, which is not a coincidence, because Perek Lamed Beis alludes to and is a hint to the totality of the whole Torah. The Torah begins with the letter Beis. What's the first word of the Torah? Bereshis. Torah begins with the letter Beis. Umistayemes balamed. The Torah ends with the letter Lamed. What are the last words of Torah? Le'inei kol Yisrael. We're going to make a siyum on Torah soon. Begins with Beis and ends with Lamed, which is Leiv, the heart. Shekashem shalev kipshuta mekayim mechayis aguf kula. Kach tali atorah kula be'edah shel shiras ha'azinu. Zeu halev shel atorah kula. Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, just like the heart keeps the body alive, our very definitions, machlokas, how do you define death, brain death, or the cessation of automated respiratory, how you define death is, of course, a tremendously halachically complicated and controversial topic. Not for now, but one opinion is that halacha defines life and death by heartbeat. If your heart is beating, can beat spontaneously, then you are alive. If your heart can no longer beat on its own, then you are dead. The heart is the definition of life. Hadam hu nefesh, the blood flow through the veins that is pumped by the heart. Hadam hu nefesh, that is the definition of life. So just like the leiv, just like a person is only as healthy as their heart, the heart defines the health of the body, so too Torah defines the health of the neshama. And what is the heart of Torah? Ha'azinu. So the Rebbe says, all of Shiras Ha'azinu is in Perek Lamed Beis, leiv, because Shiras of Hazinu, the song of Hazinu, is the heart, it is the health of the whole Torah and of the whole neshama. Okay, very good. Let's start now. So Perek Lamed Beis, we just said, the whole thing is in Perek Lamed Beis. Pasuk Aleph, Hazinu Hashamayim va'adabera, v'sishma ha'aretz imrei fi. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Moshe Weinberger, loves to quote the Lubavitcher Rebbe, say, Ha'azinu Hashamayim va'adabera. We're not going to spend time on this, but why the shift from the word Ha'azinu, give ear, to v'tishma, and listen. Ha'azinu, like the ozen, oznayim, hear, and tishma, shamea, to listen. Why the shift? What's the difference between the words? One is harsh and one is soft. Why do we use one word to talk about Shemayim and another word describes Aretz? There's countless commentary on each of these psukim, but on that. But Hazinu Hashamayim, speak to the heavens, give ear heavens, and I will speak, and may the earth hear the words of my mouth. So the Rebbe say, do you know how Aretz represents the physical body, the guf? Here we are on earth, distracted by all the earthly things. That's what we're doing tshuva for. What these Aseret Simei tshuva are all about. We are reflecting on our lives, this battle that rages in us. Am I the godly soul? Am I the animal instinct and impulse? Do I give in to my urge and appetite to look at the wrong thing, eat the wrong thing, go to the wrong place, be lazy and procrastinate? Or am I disciplined and dignified? Do I reign supreme and sovereign over my life? Am I in charge and am I in control? That is the battle within man, generic man, the battle within us of heaven and earth. Heaven is the brain, heaven is the head, heaven is the neshama, heaven is the yearning, the spirituality, what we reach for. And the earth, the earthliness is what we're drawn to. Shared many times, but it's worth sharing again. The human being is the only that stands on 2 feet. Why? The animal walks on all 4 because the animal faces the earth, because the animal is defined by the here and now. Behema, ba, ma. What you see is what you get. The animal is the here and now. The animal is drawn to the earth. The animal has an appetite, an impulse, an animal instinct. The animal does what it wants, with whom it wants, where it wants, when it wants, and so on. The human being, we don't face the earth. We are not defined as a behema bama. We are an Adam. In Adam and Ha'adama, we have the capacity to grow. We are a rich soil that's all about growth. So what is the human being? We stand on 2 feet. Why? Because we face the heavens. We reach for the heavens. We stretch for the heavens. We're trying to grow. We're trying to be bigger, better, greater. We're trying to be our best selves. Not Bama, what you see is what you get, but Adam. We're constantly on this journey, this path towards growing. We're not standing still. Vayelech, lech lecha. We're halacha. We're constantly in movement. We're growing. We're doing. We're trying to be better. So Hazinu Shamayim. We have to speak to the neshama in us. We have to speak to the Shamayim in us. We have to listen to those who speak, like Rav Moshe Weinberger, who speak to the Shamayim in us. Not just the Aretz in us. Don't just listen to that which talks to the earthliness in us, that talks to the here and now, the physical in us, but stretch and reach and strive for the Shamayim, for the heavenly, for the spiritual in us. Hazinu Hashamayim v'adaber v'sishma ha'aretz imrei fi. Rabbi Soloveitchik says on these words, Hazinu, in the Rav Oyu Chumash, he says, why does Moshe invoke heaven and earth to witness the covenant he made with the Jewish people? Here, Moshe is reminding the people, there's a promise, there's a pledge, there's a covenant. There's a responsibility, there's a contract. And who are the witnesses to this contract? You didn't call in 2 witnesses. You didn't have to get notaries. Who are the witnesses? None other, says the Pasuk, says Moshe, than heaven and earth. Why does Moshe invoke heaven and earth? So Rashi cites the Medrash, which explains that the heavens asked the Jewish people, have you ever seen the sun rising in the west and setting in the east? Have you ever planted wheat and reaped corn? What's the message? What's Rashi saying? Nature abides strictly by the laws that were implanted in it. By following the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology, the world follows God's laws. No one dares violate the dynamics of the cosmos, as represented by the heaven and earth. His primordial will created and regulates all of creation, both organic and inorganic matter, intelligent beings as well as the beast. Nature behaves in accordance with regulated patterns, a behavior which attests to his absolute sovereignty. Yet, as far as the moral law is concerned, Hashem's sovereignty is not universally accepted. Man tries to divine his own moral code and decide on his own what is good and evil. The vision of the Malchios section of the Rosh Hashanah liturgy expresses our belief that man will ultimately accept his moral law in the same way that he now acknowledges the natural law. The description, the liturgy of both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Malchios in particular, it depicts and describes a time where it's not only science which becomes immutable. It's not only physics, biology, and chemistry which are non-debatable. Nobody today is going to debate that the earth is round or that gravity is a pull. Those are immutable. They're facts. Nature has facts. They are simply rules with which the world operates. And that's Shamayim V'aretz, heaven and earth are the symbol of nature. And just like nature is immutable, it's not debatable, nature is entirely obedient and compliant. Whatever God programmed and designed into nature, nature now does, so too we are supposed to be like nature. We say in Kiddush Levana, Shelo Yishanu es Tafkidam. Kiddush Levana, we look up at that moon and we celebrate the rebirth, the renewal of the moon, and we think about the moon and the sun, the stars, the constellation, the cosmos, and we acknowledge and we say, we're not, God forbid, worshiping the moon. In fact, many have the custom to turn around and have their back to the moon when we say the bracha of Kiddush Levana, in order to ensure that no one will have the misimpression that we're worshiping the moon. So why do we say Kiddush Levana? In the text of the bracha of Kiddush Levana, Shelo Yishanu es Tafkidam. You say the moon, the sun, it never changes. It does what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. We have a monthly sunrise on the beach. We've not yet resumed it. Mirz Hashem soon. Monthly, we go to the beach. If we take Palmetto Park Road all the way east, you get to the end, there's a gazebo. We meet at the gazebo. We have a beautiful, beautiful minion, literally overlooking the ocean. And whatever time it's set on the calendar, whatever it's set on the cover of the newspaper, on myzmanim.com, whatever time it says the sun is supposed to ride, punkt, right then. It's amazing. Say the bracha Ga'al Yisrael, silence comes over the gazebo. You look out over the ocean, and there it is. The top of the sun pokes through. It's magnificent to see. It's really, really amazing. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And there it is. And every time that we have our monthly sunrise minion, our Nate's minion, Ha-Nate's minion at the beach, I'm always amazed. Shelo Yishanu es Tafkidam. I could look at what time sunrise is in 1,000 years from now, and you know what? The sun by then won't say, I was lazy. I needed a day off. I needed to sleep in. My whole schedule was thrown off. There was a pandemic. Whatever time it says the sun is supposed to rise, punkt, there it is. No excuses, no cop out, no rationalizations, no justifications, no blame. There it is. Shelo Yishanu es Tafkidam. It does what it's meant to do. Says the Rav, Hazinu Hashamayim va'adabera. Why is Moshe invoking the image of heaven and earth in order to be the witnesses testifying to this covenant, this promise? Because we are to uphold our moral promise to Hashem. We, the Jewish people, collectively and individually, are supposed to be role models and examples to the world of what it means to live a moral and ethical life. And just like science, nature, chemistry, biology, and physics, they don't make excuses. Punkt. Whatever they're supposed to do, they do. There are rules. They're immutable. They behave. They're not debatable. They don't change. So too the moral and ethical laws of Hashem, Shelo Yishanu es Tafkidam. They should be non-negotiable. We can't change them. We can't deviate from them. We should fulfill them the exact way that they were dictated, just as nature and science fulfills exactly what it was meant to do as well. Okay, next pasuk phase. Yarov kamatar lekri tizal katal imrasi kisirim alei desha v'chirvivim alei esav. We don't study Hazinu. Again, timing-wise, it rarely falls out that we can study it together in the Parsha class. But most people, I think, it's a pretty busy time of the year. Hopefully you do Yishnai Mikra V'Echad Targum. But unlike the narrative sections of Torah, of Chumash, which are exciting, Hazinu is very tough. As I said, the Hebrew and the poetry, it's unusual. It's a departure from what we're used to in terms of the style. Yarov kamatar lichi. May my teaching drop like rain. Tizal katal imrasi. My utterance flow like dew, like tal. Kisirim alei desha, like storm winds on vegetation. Chirvivim alei esav, and like raindrops on blades of grass. What does this mean? What is this telling us? Rav Simcha Bunim, why is Torah and teachings are likened to rain and to dew? Why? What does that mean? Says Rav Simcha Bunim, the tzaddik Rav Simcha Bunim of Pshischa. He says when rain or dew fall on a garden, so you don't see the impact right away. I mentioned recently that this summer, at the end of the summer, one of my daughters and I planted a garden. We've been talking about it for a long time. And again, one of the beauties of the pandemic gives us opportunity and windows into time and things that we heretofore have not done. So we went to Home Depot and we said, talk to us like we have no idea what we're doing. And they did, because we have no idea what we're doing. And we got tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and we got red peppers, and we got basil, and we got peppermint, and we got, I don't remember what else. And we dug up the grass and we spread out the soil and we planted. And we're having an enormously fun time. Every day we go out there. And it's an amazing thing. If you look daily, you can't see any growth. First of all, the best gardener in the world, who is our partner, is of course Hashem, who makes it rain every day and waters our garden, without which it would probably dry up, because we're not that good. So Hashem is a great partner, deserves acknowledgement. So here's the amazing thing that she's learning, that I'm learning. If you look every day, you don't see the tomato vines growing. You can't see any growth. But what she's having fun doing is she takes pictures. And if you compare the picture from 10 days ago to the picture today, side by side, all of a sudden you say, wow, it grew significantly. It's budding. It's on its way. We're going to eat tomatoes one day from these vines. Emirtz Hashem. So the Reb Simcha ben Pshischa says that why is the Torah likening the teaching of Torah to vegetation, like rain on the garden, like dew on the vegetables? Why are we likening the same way? The teaching of Torah, you can't necessarily measure the growth in real time. You don't see within your children or your students or even within ourselves. You don't necessarily see the results in real time. But the same way, when you water a garden, you can't see it in real time. But if you look over time, it's undeniable, the growth. The same is true with the impact of Torah. If you allow Torah, the image of a bikiva, the drip, if you allow Torah to drip, 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 if you allow Torah to fall like rain, to rest like dew, then over time, undeniably, you will see that breakthrough, you will see that growth, you will see that impact. It happens over time. Rav Wolbe, Shlomo Bava has another insight onto this pasuk. So again, Yarov kamatar lechi, may Torah drip like rain. Rav Wolbe quotes his Rebbe, Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz of the Mir. So Rav Wolbe quotes his Rebbe, Rabbi Yerucham, who explained the pasuk. Why are we comparing Torah to rain? And he has a different insight, different than the tzaddik Rav Simcha Bunim. He says the following: rain dampens the soil, and it creates fertile ground. The rain is helpful. You would have hard earth. The rain dampens, makes moist, it makes the soil more available to place seeds in order for them to grow. But the growth of the plant or of the vegetable, of the vegetation, comes not from the rain. You need the rain. But where does it come from? If you want to eat that tomato, if you want to eat that red pepper, if you want to put that basil in your soup, how is it going to grow? Where does it come from? It comes from inside the seed itself. So although Torah prepares and cultivates a person to grow, Torah is like rain. It waters us, it cultivates us, it prepares us, it nourishes us, it nurtures us. But the growth has to be like a seed. The growth has to come, says Rav Yerucham, from inside ourselves. Such an important insight, because people wonder and they wait. Say, I don't understand. That person learns Torah. These children get that Jewish education. Why aren't they mentioned? Why don't they behave? Why aren't they moral? Why aren't they ethical? It's very disturbing. It's very frustrating. And it's caused many people to go off the derech. The people who learn Torah but don't live Torah. Why is there that break? Why is there that barrier? So Rav Yerucham is explaining. Yarov kamatar lechi, Torah is likened to rain. Rain and dew, they nurture and they nourish. They can make it fertile for growth, but they can't produce the fruit. Only what's inside that seed has to come out. And the same is true with us. We have an neshama inside ourselves. We have potential. We have the life that we're capable of. We have the impact. We have the mission that we're meant to live. And Torah is like the rain. The Torah nourishes and it nurtures. The Torah makes us fertile soil for growth. But like the seed, it has to come from inside ourselves. Rav Yerucham quotes Rabbeinu Yonah in Shari Tshuva and Perek Beis. Rabbeinu Yonah writes, quote, if a person does not arouse himself, what will Musar help? Rabbeinu Yonah says, Musar is beautiful. Musar is like rain. Torah is like rain. But if you don't wake yourself up, if you don't get yourself going, if you don't decide in your own heart that you're ready to finally break through, that you're going to start changing your life, you're going to become more patient and less envious and jealous and slower to anger, that you're going to learn more, daven better, you're going to make brachas, you're going to be more grateful, more appreciative, more honest, have more integrity. If you don't decide to wake up and change your life, you could have the greatest rabbi, the greatest friends, you can listen to the best classes, you can attend the best seminar, you can hire the best trainer, the best chef, the best coach, the best manager. You can take care of all the things outside yourself. You could even sit and study Torah all day long like rain. All those things can help, but it has to come from inside ourselves. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, if you don't wake yourself up, then Musar cannot help. And Rav Wolbe quotes this, Rabbeinu Yonah and Rabbi Yerucham, and Rav Wolbe elaborates. And he says you could listen to endless Musar shmuzim. But if you don't decide at the end that you want to grow and you want to break through, then no change, then nothing is measurable is going to happen. And says Rav Wolbe, we could take the same observation about Sukkot. Sukkot has the potential to be one of the most spiritually uplifting times of the year. Are we going to sit in the Ananya Kavod? And I'm giving some Sukkos Divrei Torah. It's wishful thinking, but we got to get through Yom Kippur first. We could sit through the Ananya Kavod, surrounded by Hashem's Hashgacha, rejoicing in forgiveness and mitzvah Hashem that we're going to earn on Yom Kippur. Sukkos and the rest of the Yom Noraim, Tishrei, end with Simchas Torah, with the joy. And what we say is, Torah, you are the rain, you nourish and you nurture us, but we celebrate that we broke through from within ourselves. So two different insights into why Yarov Kamatar Lekhi, why is the study of Torah likened to the falling of rain or dew? Who says because you don't see the growth in real time, it takes time, but over time, if you measure side by side, you'll see that there's enormous growth and enormous breakthrough. That's a very powerful lesson for parents, for teachers, for educators. For us to be patient. Be patient. You won't see it right now, but it'll happen. It'll happen. I always admire my colleagues and my dear friends, the educators who have a child in their class and they don't necessarily see the breakthrough because that child, it doesn't grow or break through till years later. They don't get the nachas immediately, but it's over time. There's a famous Kotzker. We say in Shema, Al Levavecha. We put the Torah. What do you mean Al Levavecha? On our heart. We should put it Bil Vavecha, in your heart. Why is it Al Levavecha? It's a very famous Kotzker. He says, because our job is to put the Torah on top of the heart. Just leave it there. And you never know when the heart will break, when the heart will open up and it'll seep in. Leave it there, put it there. Teach, model, communicate, inspire. Al levavecha. Place the Torah there. And you never know when the shell of the Torah will dissolve. You never know when the heart will get a crack. You never know when the heart will open up. And the al levavecha, the Torah will seep in. For ourselves, keep putting it there, keep putting it there. You never know when you're going to break open. Or for our children, or for others, we never know when that breakthrough will happen. Next pasuk, Hatzur tamim pa'alo, kichol derechad mishpat kel emunah ve'inavel tzadik v'yasharhu. Hatzur tamim pa'alo, pasuk daled. The deeds of Hashem, now Hashem is likened here, Hatzur, to a rock, a mighty rock. Tamim, the deeds of the rock are perfect. Kichol derechad mishpat, Hashem is pure justice. Kel emunah, He is the God, a faithful God. Ein avel, there's no injustice. Tzadik v'yasharhu, He is righteous and He is upright. It's a very important pasuk. We say this pasuk, Hatzur tamim pa'alo, forms the core. It's the basis. It's the first part of Tziddik Hadin. At a funeral, lo aleinu. At the end of the funeral, either the mourners themselves or the rabbi who's officiating on behalf of the mourners recites what's called Tziddik Hadin. Tziddik Hadin is the acceptance of divine judgment, divine justice. Meaning, just like when a person hears that there's a loved one that's lost, they say, Baruch Dayan ha'emes, blessed is the true judge. That's a very succinct articulation of accepting Hashem, that it comes from Him even when it's difficult to accept. The longer version is Tziddik Hadin. It's a long, long paragraph. And it starts with these words, Hatzur tamim pa'alo, Hatzur. We call Hashem here a rock. It's very interesting. Earlier in the whole Torah, the word Tzur barely appears. We don't call God a Tzur. And here in this section alone, Tzur appears 5 times. 5 times. Hatzur tamim pa'alo, kichol derechad mishpat. And then we go on, we call him Tzur no less than 5 times. What is the significance of calling God a rock? What is the significance of the reference to calling God a rock? So Rabbi Bachya has 2 interpretations, which are very interesting. Rabbi Bachya, however you pronounce his name, the great Spanish commentator, Rabbi Bachya says the following. He says, number 1, Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of his life. You have to understand, for Moshe Rabbeinu, he is 120, but he's not on his deathbed looking back and saying, I lived a good life and a peaceful life and I realized all my dreams and I fulfilled everything I wanted, all of my hopes and wishes. Moshe Rabbeinu is escorting the people. They are on the cusp of entering the land. They, the people, are about to fulfill his dream and he is going to meet his ends. It's a very frustrating, very difficult, very painful for him to accept that he got so close and yet he can't get in. And yet here he calls Hashem Hatzur. Says Rabbeinu Bachya, that should not be lost on you, that he's giving him the name for Hashem of Hatzur, the rock. Why is that significant? Because why is it that Moshe can't go into Israel? It's a brilliant insight, Rabbeinu Bachya. Why is it that Moshe can't go into Israel? The punishment, the consequence for Mei Meriva, the punishment and the consequence for the fact that Moshe hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. So within his own acknowledgement at the end of his life, within his own praise of Hashem, he is invoking the image of his own mistake. When he's describing that God, he's tamim, he's pure. Mishpat, he's just. Ein avel, there's no injustice. He is basically saying to the people in a hinted way, he's alluding to the people, b'derech remiza, in a very nuanced way. He's saying, God is just, there's no injustice. I so badly want to go in. But he's right. Hatsur, he, the rock, is just in punishing me because I hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. Isn't that geschmack? You should all be smiling. You should all be enjoying that much, much better. It's geschmack. Not corona, just a sneeze. It's an incredible insight. Hatsur, at the end of his life, when he should be resentful, bitter. I saw some of you like moving away from the camera. Don't worry, it can't go through Zoom. It doesn't come through YouTube. The sneeze, and it's not corona. It's just a sneeze. It's just lack of sleep and fasting and a lot of speaking. Hatsur, at the end of Moshe's life, he is Hatsur. He's praising Hashem. It's not a lukewarm praise. It's not a bittersweet praise. It is a wholehearted, full-fledged sneeze praise to Hashem. It is a full praise, Hatsur. Hashem, you, in the very statement, in the very affirmation that Hashem stands for justice, he recognizes Hashem as Tzur. He is, in fact, invoking his own failure. He's invoking his own shortcoming when he's referencing that Hashem is kulo just. He is entirely just. There is no injustice. That's number one. Number two, he is invoking Hashem as the creator. Hashem, you are the creator, and you mold and shape the world, and everything is from you. How is he invoking that in the word sur, says Rabbeinu Bachya? The word sur includes like yatzar. Hashem created, vayitzar Hashem Elokim, Kadosh Baruch Hu created. In Tfilas Chana, she says, Ein sur kelokenu. There's no rock like God. To which Chazal understand, not Ein sur kelokenu, but Ein tzayar ke'elokenu. There is no artist like God. Ein sur kelokenu, Ein tzayar ke'elokenu. What a beautiful insight. When I had the great honor and privilege to go to Montana, to Glacier National Park, and I went to the Swiss Alps, in both of those places, all I could think about was that Chazal. Ein sur kelokenu, there's no rock like God. Ein tzayar ke'elokenu. Give man all the time in the world, you can't create Glacier National Park. All the technology in the world, you can't create the Swiss Alps. There's no greater artist. He's the greatest artist of all time. Ein tzayar ke'elokenu. And our lives, the tapestry upon which he paints our lives. He is the artist who is painting our lives. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu's acknowledgement to Hashem, that Hashem, you created, you are Yotzer HaMe'oros, Asher Yatzar. You are the Yotzer, you are the Tzur, you are the rock, steadfast, reliable, dependable, predictable. You are the rock, and you are also the Yotzer, the Tzayar. You are the artist, and you are the creator. And Moshe Rabbeinu is invoking all of that over here. I want to quote an insight from Rav Druk, Rav Yisrael Meir Druk. Rav Druk says the following. Hatzur Tamim Palo. He asks a Gavaldik question. The pasuk says, Ein Avel. Hashem, you're only just. I would say with you, by you. They would say by you, but that's not English. By you, Hashem, with you, Hashem, in reference to you, Hashem, Ein Avel. There is no injustice. What are you bringing up? So Rashi there says, Ein Avel. Even with the wicked, he is giving them their reward in this world. He is saving their punishment for the future world. Says Rav Druk, one of the ways we're praising Hashem, one of the ways that Moshe is praising Hashem is there's no injustice. How bizarre, how strange. What praise is it to tell God there's no injustice? David HaMelech says the same thing. You remember it from our davening Friday night. Lo avlasabo, to tell that Hashem is Yashari, straight. Tsuri, he's my rock. This is David HaMelech's play on words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Has the same words, Tsur and Velo avlasabo, Ein Avel. What kind of praise is it for Hashem to say, and Hashem, you're not corrupt. You're not on the take. There's no bribing you. There's no injustice with you. That's a praise for the Almighty, the Omnipotent, the Infinite God, that there's no injustice with you. It's a bizarre type of a praise. Bizarre praise. So Rav Druk quotes the Gra, some say in the name of Yisrael Salanter, the following. He gives the following metaphor. If a person, somebody was accused of a crime, and they're brought before the judge for sentencing, for ruling, for justice. So what's going to happen? The judge is going to listen, and the judge is going to have a hearing and join, and the judge is going to rule based on the merits of the person who comes before him. Tomorrow night at Mahan Bima, we're having a federal judge, Judge Al Hellerstein. Very excited to hear his take about Supreme Court justice and what it's like to be a judge, how his Judaism impacts his justice, and give us some good hints how to come before the judge of judges as a judge himself. So when a person comes before a judge, the judge is listening on the merits of that person, on the merits of that person themselves. Whether they're guilty, whether they're innocent, whether they have virtue, or whether they in fact deserve to have the book thrown at them. So what does the lawyer for that accused do? They say, no, listen to the family of the accused. And the family come and they say, this person is so essential to me and I love them and what they've done for me and how they transform me. And you cannot punish them, because if you punish them, you're punishing me. You're punishing me. And then the rabbi comes, and the recipients of the tzedakah come, and the friends come, and the organizations come, and the Chevra Kadisha comes and says, Judge, you can't put this person in jail because he does the best taharas. He gives them a tzedakah. He's the gabbai, the minion. He's the one who cleans up the siddurim and the chumashim. He's the one who puts out the food for shalosh shivas. If you punish him, you're punishing all of us. One by one, the way you appeal to the judge is by saying, you're not just going to punish the person, you're going to punish all of us. So what happens? It would turn out that punishing the person is in fact punishing others who are undeserving of punishment. That's a complicating factor for a judge who has to determine what the right thing is to do. Hashem is different. Hashem is able to punish the person who deserves to be punished. Tamim pa'alo. His justice and his punishment, his punitive system are pure. He's able to hone in and punish just the person who deserves it without a residual or without any other collateral damage to anyone who's undeserving. And that's what we say. That's the pshat, says the Gra. All of Hashem ways are mishpat. There's no injustice. It's not that to do justice for A becomes an injustice for B. Hashem is able to work it all out and coordinate it all. For him, there is pure justice, and there is no injustice when it comes to anybody else. Says Rav Druk, based on this, maybe we understand the Mishnah, Knei lecha chaver, acquire for yourself a friend. Ulaharbes la'ohavim v'yedidim, im chalila yachdam gzardino lemisa, yitztarchu lehechashe banashim rabba, sheigrim lemtzar mimoso. Says Rav Druk, if you have a lot of good friends, if you have a lot of people who rely on you, if you become essential personnel, not non-essential personnel, the whole world today is talking about essential versus non-essential. We've been talking about it forever, the Jewish people. The world is catching up. Essential versus non-essential. If you make and position yourself to be essential, you matter, you make a difference to others, then the judge of judges will have to rule in your favor. Because if he would eliminate you, he'd be punishing not only you, but other people. The more chaverim you have, therefore the more you matter in this world, therefore the more Hashem will have to rule favorably. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, he doesn't quote this here, Rav Goldberg quotes it in Ale Shor, that we should position ourselves to be somebody, ish sheharabim tzrichim lo, that the answer, the secret to persevering, to succeeding on Yom Adin, Yemei Adin, on Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur, to walk out on Yom Kippur and to be sealed for a year of goodness, is to be a person shaharabim tzrichim lo. Don't be egotistical, narcissistic, self-centered. Don't be in it for yourself. Be a person shaharabim tzrichim lo. Don't just be a person who makes Shabbos for yourself. Don't make Yom Kippur for yourself. Well, my backyard, my minion, my kiddush, I don't want to wear a mask, this. Be a community member. Be a community player. Care about the people. Volunteer and show up. Be a gabbai. Be a bal tefillah. Give a little extra tzedakah to help the people who can't afford. All again in a safe way. Not talking about asking anyone to do anything that's unsafe. All in a safe way. But be a person shaharabim tzrichim lo. Because Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, when Yom Adin comes, when Yom Kippur comes, if you're in it for yourself, your comfort, your convenience yourself, Hashem says, bring me his file. Bring me her file. Let me look at them as themselves. Are they worthy? But if you're a person, Sharabim Tzrichim Lo, Hatzur Tamim Pa'alo, if you're Knei Lecha Chaver, if you're a person who's positioned yourself that others rely on you, you're essential, Hashem doesn't just look at your file. He looks at all the letters that came in from all over that say, don't punish this person. We need them. We rely on them. Don't compromise them. Don't limit them. We need them. We need them. Don't hold them back whatsoever. We need them. And he goes on. He has a much more beautiful insight into this Rav Druk. Okay, next. Pasuk says, Zechor Yemos Olam, Binu Shnos Dor Vador, Pasuk Zayin. Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Zayin. Zechor Yemos Olam, Binu Shnos Dor Vador, Shalavicha B'Yagedcha, Zekeinecha V'Yomru Lach. Remember the days of old, reflect upon the years of other generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will inform you. This is the source of the value of Jewish history. I want to give a whole shir about studying Jewish history. We don't make a birchas HaTorah on studying Jewish history. It's not that studying Jewish history has the value of Torah, but there is a significant Jewish value to studying history, to knowing where we come from. Zechor Yemos Olam, to remember our history, to know where we come from, so we're not doomed to repeat it, so we can learn the lessons of it, and so on. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes here on this pasuk, recognition of Hashem's presence and absence at certain moments leads to a proper interpretation of events, both in the lives of individuals and in the life of community. To read history properly and to interpret it in the light of Hashem's absence or presence is a prime duty of the Jew. It's implied by the Ramban's doctrine of Masa Avosim and Labanim. The events involving the fathers are signs for the descendants. When we study Chumash, what is it? What is Tanakh if not the study of history? Zechor Yemos Olam. So our reflections on the past don't end when Tanakh closes. Zechor Yemos Olam. We become collective students of history because there is no history. You know, Rabbi Sachs, Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs, in his Haggadah has an essay where he talks about others study history. History is his story. We have memory. Memory starts with me. We're not studying someone else's story, history, his story. For us, it's all part of our active memory. Maisa Avosim and Labanim is my memory, me, my ancestors. We went through it. Man must have an excellent ear in order to hear the footsteps of Hashem who walks in the garden of human history. We must beware of the danger that, like Adam and Chava, mankind will purposefully try to escape reality and hide upon hearing the footsteps of Hashem. Otherwise, man will descend to the level of Avram's contemporaries, who could not hear the call, who could not even recognize Hashem. In this pasuk is the value of studying history as a religious experience, not memorizing a bunch of facts, names, places, and dates. We study history as a religious experience on the mission to uncover and discover Hashem's guiding hand through that history, because then it transforms it from history to memory, his to me. It informs my present and it guides my very future. Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Yud Beis, moving right along, flying up to Shlishi, almost up to Shlishi. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem badad yanchenu ve'ein imo el nechar. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem guided them alone, and there was no alien deity with him. Ein imo el nechar, no foreign god. Hashem badad. You can imagine this word jumped off the page to me this year particularly. What's it called in Israel if you are in quarantine? You are in bidud, badad. We spoke about this on Tisha B'Av night, where we said it's not normal. This isn't normal. It's not normal. Eicha yashva badad. That is exactly what the Navi was bemoaning. This isn't normal. And what we're still going through is not normal. And we should never become adjusted. We have to remain maladjusted. This can never become normal. So that word badad, which means quarantine, alone, loneliness, Eicha yashva badad was the lamenting history, lamentation. And here Hashem badad yanchenu. Hashem guided them alone. Hashem guided them alone. So here the Imrei Chaim, you didn't think we weren't going to have an Imrei Chaim. The Imrei Chaim, the great Vishnitzer Rebbe says the following. Hashem badad yanchenu. Yadua she'adam she'oved Hashem yisborach behizbodedus, below dibuk chaverim. If you try to worship Hashem alone, by yourself, you're not going to connect with friends. You're not part of community. You are badad. My backyard, my minion, myself, my kiddush. I make Shabbos for myself. I don't care about the greater world. You cannot come to the level of Avas Hashem. If you're trying to serve and worship Hashem and experience your Judaism badad, by yourself, alone, isolated from others, withdrawn, distracted, below diba kaverim, you can't achieve it. I am a Parsha Mishnah Rambam. Avas Hashem Mava Bachana Rabbas Lekim Ha'asam B'Yira Mava L'Shmiras Alavan. Alken Akasa Omer Hashem Badad Yanchenu. Misha Oved Hashem Yisbarach B'Bdidus. If you serve Hashem in loneliness, distanced by choice, Azai Magia Rak Lamida Zu Shel Ve'ein Imo El Nechar. The only level that you can reach if you try to serve God by yourself is Ein Imo El Nechar. You won't be a pagan. You won't be an idolater. You won't worship a false god. That's the only level you can get to. Surmira. Aval Yarkiveu Abamse Aretz V'Yochal. Right, the next pasuk. Keep going. Yarkiveu Abamase Aretz V'yochal tnuvas sadai. He made them ride upon the high places of earth. They would eat the produce of the field, which are Rashi Tevos Yedidim. It's an acronym for Yedidim, with friends, not Badad, but with Yedidim. In Mischaber B'tzavsim Avim Ne'emanim of the Hashem, then V'yochal tnuvas sadai. Then you'll eat from the good, from the pleasant, from the fruit, from the succulent, delicious fruit of this world. So the Rechaim says in this pasuk is the contrast. Hashem Badad. Are you going to serve Hashem Badad? You'll only get to the level of El Nechar, that you're not going to have a false God. But if you want to be able to achieve the level of eating from the delicious fruit of this world, then Yedidus, you have to serve Hashem Yedidim, you have to serve Hashem with others, connected, community, caring, being part of something so much bigger than ourselves. Okay, last thought. Parak Lamed Beis Pasuk Memtes. Let's get to the end of the Shira. Lamed Beis Memtes. It's in the Art Scroll Stone Chumash, page 1110. Moshe spoke to Moshe and he said, Alei al Har Avrim Hazeh Har Nevo, go climb this mountain. Urei Eretz Canaan, go see the land that I'm giving others. Umus bahar ta'oleh shama, and die on the mountain that you're going to go onto. Ve'hasef al amecha, and you'll be gathered to your people, just like Aaron died and he was gathered to his people. First of all, this is so cruel, so cruel. There's one question: why would God do this cruelty? Moshe, go climb the mountain and give a kick, give a look. You're not going in. Instead, you see that mountain over there. I want you to go up there and drop dead. Hashem tells Moshe, literally, go drop dead. Since when can you command someone to drop dead? That's the question of the Ish Tamid of Rav Druk. Go die on that mountain? How could you command someone to die? Suicide is prohibited. Kadosh Baruch Hu is, of course, not, God forbid, telling Moshe, go commit suicide. What does he mean, go die? So Ibn Ezra says, it doesn't mean go die. It means, go prepare yourself for death. Go prepare to meet your maker. Go and say vidui. Go and do all that's necessary to prepare for the Jewish way to die. Rabbi Bachi says, "V'itach in the Parsha in umus shani gozer alacha shatamas miyad hamisa inenu biyad ha'adam ulekach lotimtza besod lashon hakodesh mila b'lashon tzivu b'davar sheni chos b'yad lasos miyad ki medaber m'chaver eno lamar yashen olo yamus yev shalishon lamus ukshkez yamus b'davar Hashem hu v'hu yisal hagozer v'lo hashot ani cholos." In fact, because you cannot instruct somebody to do it, this is an illusion to know this is not in your power. You can't delay it. You're not in charge of it. You can't make it happen. It is something that exclusively belongs in the realm of Hashem. Hashem alone is the one who controls it. The Sforno says, "Umus bahar kibal alecha misla kapara." He says, "Umus" means know that this is going to be your final kapara. This is what's going to be what transforms you. This is going to be what elevates you. But I want to leave it with a question for you. In these very parshios in which Moshe is describing the process and the power of tshuva, why does he not have tshuva? Why does Hashem tell us in the very parshios in which Moshe is describing our ability to repair, to come back, to correct, to fix, everyone has a second chance except Moshe? Instead, Hashem says, go on that mountain and die, and go on that mountain and die. Is tshuva possible for everyone? Is tshuva denied to Moshe? What is going on? I leave that to you as a question, a cliffhanger for you to think about, and I invite you and encourage you to join us tomorrow morning for Mesilas Yesharim at 8:15, Living with Emunah at 8:45, Behind the Bima tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. Special guest Judge Alvin Hellerstein, and look forward to wishing everyone a Gemar Chasima Tova. Should be a good Gebench year, good health, happiness. Look forward to continuing with the Parsha Shir following Sukkot. So stay tuned for when the next Parsha Shir will begin again following Sukkot. Gemar Chasima Tova, a good Yontif, and take care.